Hello, Internet. It is Michael again. It's about 6:30 where I'm at. I was kind of chilling for the night and poured myself a pint of stout. And I thought I'd kind of wind down by doing a little bit of engine programming. And I'm kind of enjoying doing it online where people can pop in periodically. Not that a lot of people have so far. I'm not really producing a show or anything like that. I'm just sort of working out loud on stream. So where I last left off on my game engine was I was setting up a system for serializing data for scenes, including data that can be arbitrarily structured by the game developer. The way that entity component system the entity component system paradigm works in general is that you'll have your scene is filled with empty entities. So basically just a thing that is a container for components, and the components are the things that drive the behaviors. And the way that I'm structuring ECS in my game engine is to have developers create systems for each new behavior themselves, and I'm wanting to make it really easy for a developer to just quickly code and plop in a new kind of component in a system that manages it. And part of the challenge there is making it easy for developers to extend the scene serialization system. So that means that they can, when they're developing their systems, they can easily jack in and tell Enterprise how they want their data serialized and how to unserialize it. And that's gone pretty well so far. I'm pulling up the chat on my phone. I've only got the one display here, so I don't have like an additional display to track Twitch stuff. So I just kind of pull up the chat on my phone and see and keep track of what happens there. Anyway, so I did a little bit of work offline since I was last online, mostly just cleaning up some stuff. I've decided that for now, I'm going to completely ignore and not deal with binary safe serialization because until I have an editor and or a build system for packaging up games, I don't really have much use for binary files. I'm largely going to be constructing scene files by literally just typing it out in YAML like this. And that's working, so I think I'm going to move on from that. There's only a couple of last little things that I need to deal with before moving on to something else. And the first is that I don't actually have a way to properly save files. So, for example, this is just a simple little system I set up for the purposes of testing out custom components. So we've got a delete components function, which I'm using a very simple, just a map to store the components in this system. This is not a practical way to handle this, by the way. You would definitely want to do something a little bit smarter and faster with your memory than doing it on a map, which is always heap allocated. But just for the sake of purposes and making the creation of the test system simple, I just did a map. I've got a delete, which just deletes the entity or deletes the component from the pool. I've got a query function that returns all of the entities that have this component on it, and I've got a function that serializes to a text file and deserializes from a text file. And that's actually all I need from my systems right now for the most part. There's a little bit, I guess there's a little bit more to it because if I wanted a system that can draw, so like if I wanted to make a renderable component, I would need to call scene manager and then register a scene draw function that gets called whenever the scene is drawn. But actually all of this stuff is already implemented already. It's actually a lot more straightforward than the scene serialization stuff. And I had to deal with that when I was coming up with game states anyway. So yeah, that's all kind of ready to go. I just need to do proper text file saving. And I say proper because while it would be one thing to just write the contents of a scene to a file, and I've got the ability to do that. I can just create a an OF stream or something like that, and then just dump the YAML C string. That's not really robust. There's a couple of things that can go wrong if you just directly write to a file. The first is that if your program cuts out in the middle of saving to the file, then you'll have a corrupted file. That may not be, a huge concern in most situations because you're not exactly counting on like the power going out in the middle of saving a file. But if you directly write to the file, you're exposing the file to all kinds of other influence as well. Like, what if another process like interferes with the file or tries to save a file with the same name asynchronously or simultaneously with your attempt to save that file with the name. And it's like there's a whole bunch of little stuff to worry about. So what most programs do, and I mean programs in the general case, not just games, but programs everywhere, is they actually don't directly write to the file location, the destination file. What they do is they write to the temp folder, and I think on Windows that's in like users app data temp, or can't quite remember. I think it's like roaming app data and then temp, or is it local app data? Yeah, local app data temp. So programs will go to this folder in your local app data and then like write the file there first. And then once they've finished constructing the file, they then tell the operating system to move it to the location where they actually want to save to. And that kind of resolves a lot of problems because for most operating systems, Windows included, writing or moving the file over is something called an atomic operation, meaning that it happens, it can't be interrupted. It happens in one cycle or something like that. When you're doing concurrent programming, it's atomic literally means that it happens in one instruction, so that way you know that it's safe. So like locking a mutex is an atomic operation, and that means that it can't be interrupted by another thread. I don't know if atomic means the same thing in this sense, but the point is that by saving to temp and then moving it from temp to your documents folder or whatever, it's just a much safer way to handle writing your files. So when I do file saving, I actually want to do that instead. So far my reading and writing of files happens by one of the low-level systems of enterprise called File, unimaginatively. File basically just gives you a way to interface with the operating system. The two most important functions that it has is first, it handles virtual file paths. So there's this function that I call periodically when I'm working on something, or when I'm working on something like with the YAML API, vpath to native path. Converts a virtual file path to an operating system based file path. And that's very useful because if you're working, across computers, you can't be referencing C users, then a user file name, and then, app data and whatever. You have to make it portable. And also when you're mixing platforms, so in this case, Enterprise is a Windows and a Mac OS game engine. Like the rules are kind of different. So for example, on Windows, you would ordinarily store the content data in your program files. So if you're, I think there's a %sign program files. So like the program files folder or the program files x86 folder on Windows is where programs will store the exe and all of the data that they need to run. So like DLLs or in the case of games, content files. So like Epic Games, it's got. Oh, do I not have an Epic Games installed right now? I guess not. But you would normally store your content in here, but on Mac OS the paradigm is upside down. You have packages. So when you have or bundles, I should say, when you make your game and you double click the app to open it, the app itself is actually technically a folder that actually contains the executable and all the content you need. So you're going to be actually accessing content directly from there. When I go to write and save files in Enterprise, I do all of that work up front. So the file system has a core call init, this guy, which at the very start of the program, first it checks to see whether or not I have overridden the content and data directories via command line. And if I haven't, then what I do is I specify it using platform-specific logic. So on Windows, there's an API called shget known folder path. And you use this to gain the paths to specific locations that are commonly used for programs. And it lets the operating system decide where these things should go, which is really handy. So that way you don't have to think about it and you're technically future-proofing yourself, because if Windows 12 or 13 comes out and they mix up how users store their data, you don't have to recompile and re-release an update to your game just to put the files in the right spot or to be looking for them in the right spot. There's only a handful of spots that I care about. And so I use a system where when I go to write a path, let me find an example in the programming I've been doing. I will say the name of the location that I want to save it in, and then from there I can put however many folders or files that I want. I'm not super keen on the way that I've got it set up right now, because right now the way it is I've got content for the content location, which on Windows is going to be program files. I've got user for app data that's stored per user, so that is data that should be unique depending on which Windows user account you're logged into. Machine for global for data that should be shared between Windows accounts. And then save, which is actually separate from your app data for your user, because you want that to usually be saved in a location that people can access. So for most games, that's going to be stored in your documents, and then I think it's save games or game saves. I forget. My games? I'm not sure. Frankly, most games do it wrong. Windows actually has an official location that you can look up for where to save your stuff. If you go back to the file system, it's over here. The path that it looks up is like it's like a known. Where's the? Oh yeah, I closed the one I'm talking about. File 132.cpp. Yeah, it's called folder ID saved games. It's a location where Windows wants computer games to save their save files, and I think it's either my games or game saves or something like that. But most computer games, they just don't care. They actually just directly open up your documents folder and save it wherever they feel like. So you'll have games like Destiny 2 and Mirror's Edge Catalyst, which I haven't played in frickin' forever, but they're still in my documents. They save directly in your documents folder, when technically the correct thing to do is to use the API and get the correct location, and people can configure that in Windows if they want. So presently I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 locations. This 5th location I'm on the fence about right now. And basically the only one I've been using up to this point has been content, because I've only ever been reading files. So when I go to load up my shader, for example, I've got a simple shader going just to have something on the screen when I'm working. That's located in the content directory. I just go to content/testshader.glsl, and then it determines where that is and opens it up. If I'm going to be saving files, though, I need to first stage the file in the temp directory, and then from there move it into the destination. And so for that reason, I think I'm probably just going to get rid of this virtual file path location. But I'm on the fence because everything depends on something that you haven't considered yet. It's very possible, for example, that if you're working on a game or an editor that has to work on a lot of data at once, maybe it wants to stage it in the temp folder to avoid having to keep it all in RAM. And that's, I don't know, that seems like an edge case to me, so I'll probably just delete this until I need it. But while I'm here, actually, I'm just going to go ahead and save myself some trouble and change these drive names because I kind of get tired of typing content in all caps every time I want to access the content folder. I'll make this G for global and make this save and S for save and temp. I'll just do TMP. And I think we've got to change how we rejigger the string. So those are all 2, and this is now 4. Cool. I think that's actually enough. Let me quickly confirm that I didn't break anything. Going back to my test, I'll say C for content instead of content in all caps. Load context file. And then we'll see if everything works. I've probably forgotten something somewhere. Yeah, so it works. It loaded up everything from the correct location using C. And not to get sidetracked, but when I'm developing, I don't often want to reference the program files folder yet. So what I do is I have a command line option for the game that I think I'm going to keep in release builds, where you can specify an exact location where you want these folders. So content dir, I set it to a folder inside of my my project directory, and I did the same thing for data, and data includes the local data, the global data, and temp, and so on. But yeah, let's get back to the file API. There are 2 ways that I want to save text data, and I'm not going to bother with binary for the moment. I'm just going to do text. The first is that I just want to be able to dump the contents of a string directly to a file. So I'll just do static. I guess file error codes still matter. I have an enum that I used for determining what the result of opening a file is. So I'll just use those for the saving. And I'll do save text file. And this function up here, load text file, is the opposite. It will take a file and just quickly seek to the end. Why are you complaining? Oh, it's the same file, and I've got I made a typo on the top. Or did I? Did I mess something up? Because it seems to be complaining now about something. That's that platform data paths. Yeah, it's because I did this. I comment that out. What was I saying? So when you go to load a text file, it just quickly counts the number of bytes in the file, and then copies it into a string so that I can directly use it in memory. And there's not, I wouldn't want to use this for everything. I use it for GLSL for now, and I use it for YAML. Because when I'm working with GLSL, I actually have like a whole pre-parsing system where like this stuff is for both the fragment and the vertex shader. This stuff is just for the vertex shader. This stuff is for the other. And so what I'm doing when I go to compile that is like I'm constructing like a map of pointers to all the things to all the different sentences that I want to send to OpenGL. And there's some macros that I have for there. So I want that all in memory. Eventually I'll want to memory map that, but for now it's all in memory. When I want to stream in a file though, I have a helper class called text file reader. And I use this for INI files right now, and I'll probably be using it for game save files and things like that too. Basically, you just create it. You can optionally provide it the path up front, or you can call open, provide the path, and then you just call read next line, and it'll get you each line of the text file. And then you can respond to it. You can check if it's in a file or whatever. For saving things like scene files, there is some data that I don't think will fit nicely in my YAML parser. So like I'll need to include some meta information as well. For example, I probably want to include a hash of the entire file or the file contents, so that way I could rapidly check whether a file has changed before I go to open it. So for things like that, where I just want to like open up a file, put in one thing after another until it's done, I'm going to want to have like a text file writer class. So I'll be doing both of those, I think, tonight, depending on how quickly I work. But yeah, let's get going on the save text file. So just like the other, I do need to have a path. I'm making it a const reference because I don't need to edit it. And I think I'll take an in string that's also a const reference. So when I was loading the text file, I was taking a pointer to a string, so I could directly push the text into a string without having to construct it and then have it be copied out as a return value. What I'll do here for the in string is I'll do const std string by reference, and I'll do in string. Now that I'm looking at that, I'm wondering if I got the terms backwards. Out string implies that I am writing out to. Oh no! So you're opening up the file. The text from the file goes into the string, and this is the output of the function. Okay, and this is considered the input of the function. Yeah, terminology gets a little weird. And I'm using Doxygen style comments for all my functions because I actually do generate documentation for this using Doxygen proper to make a web-based documentation for this engine. So I actually make my habits that go through and actually fill out the descriptions of things. So here I'll say save the contents a string to a text file. And then return the result of the file open operation. Bam. All right. And let's make a definition for it. I find it's like 50-50 whether the signature comes out correct or in the correct location of the file when I do this. The load text file directly below that, I've got this guy. And because this is error code is actually part of the file system, I do have to say file error code to get it. I've got using file at the top of the file, so I don't need to use enterprise for the namespace specifier, and that's that. So the two things I need to do then would be one, I need to open, I suppose you can break this down into more steps. So like the first step would be to open a file in the temp folder. This should probably have a random file name. I think Windows API even has a API for that, where it actually will generate you a random file name for use in the temp folder. I'm not sure. We're gonna have to Google that while I'm working. After I've opened it, I need to dump the data there, specifically the contents of in-string. And then once that's finished, I will take and move that to the destination. Move file to path. Another thing to note about the way things are going right now is that presently this is all single-threaded. So this operation right now will stall my program because it's not on a separate thread. So when I go to call save text file, the program can't proceed until the function is finished. I'm okay with that for now. Later on, as I've got more of the engine complete, I'll be looking at moving things like the file save and load functions to be on their own threads. So that way you can say save text file, save your game save data or whatever it is, and then like not have to like wait for it to finish before you can continue playing the game, or before the like a loading screen shows its next frame. But for now, we'll just leave it as single-threaded, just to get the logic going. So first things first, we got to open up the temp folder. Now, I do already have, I believe, yeah, I'm using the Windows API to get the temporary folder, the temp path here. So when I go to use the vpath function, the file vpath to native path, that will, if I do tmp/ at the beginning now, that will get me a location that I can write to. But it is common practice in Windows to use a random file name whenever you do that. Though that's not a hard practice. It's like just like a best practice from what I understand. Like if we go to the temp folder that I've got here, you'll see a whole bunch of GUIDs with folders, and I think those GUIDs are actually one per program. Then you go into all these other files, like you just got this nonsense for the file name. I think that's for the purposes of keeping the file unique, to avoid any potential naming collisions or things like that, because this folder is accessed by every program I've got running at once, and there's like thousands of processes running on Windows at one time. So one approach would be I could just like make my own enterprise folder in there and then only write to it. But I'm actually going to look up the Windows docs to see what they say. Yeah. And this is, I probably should have done this research before coming on stream, but I'm just kind of stream of consciousness streaming when I go to do these live programming sessions. Creating and using a temporary file. Yep, contain unique file paths for temporary files using get temp file name and get temp path. So get temp path, I think, if I go back to the Win32, where I get the platform data paths. Yeah, so get temp path is actually what I use already for getting the temp folder. But I guess get temp file name is what I need for the random file name. Creates a name for a temporary file. If a unique file name is generated, an empty file is created and the handle to it is released. Otherwise, only a file name is generated. So I'm guessing that I can specify whether the file is created here. Let's take a look at the parameters. Directory path for the file name. Applications typically specify a period for the current directory. or the result of the get temp path function. So this function is designed to be used even independently of the temp path function. So you might use this for generating a unique file name in a different directory than the temp folder. But if I do use the get temp path function, then I can provide it for the first parameter. This actually indicates where it will go. Okay. Then I'll terminate a prefix string. Function uses up to the first 3 characters of the string as the prefix of the file name. Oh, just actually to go back a step, I'm just realizing right now that I can totally supply my vpath here. So like I had mentioned towards the start of the stream, in order to make it easier to develop, if I go to my Studio Software Enterprise, during development, I use these folders to manage not just the source code, but like the content that I'm working on. And eventually this will probably be how version control works on an enterprise game, is that you'll put the content in a folder adjacent to your source code. But while I am debugging, I have redirected the data folder to that folder anyways. So what I could do is I could just pass the vpath directly to this function, and then the function will handle the generation of the temp file for me. Even with it being redirected optionally by my command line argument. That's pretty cool. I'll have to come back to that because this is also using wide strings, and I don't store paths as wide strings in my program. I only convert to wide string when I need it, when I need to for the Win32 API. Null terminated prefix string could take up the first 3 characters of the string. Must be characters in the IAM defined character set. That actually must be, if we go back to temp, the temp folder. I think I saw that in some of these down here. Yeah, I'm wondering if that's what this _CL business is about. That they provided a prefix or the DD, but yeah. Unsigned integer to be used in the creating of temporary file name. Yeah, I'm not really sure why you would use this parameter. So this third parameter allows you to provide a unique number for generating the file name, but if it's not actually unique, it might be, then it actually makes it unique for you, so it doesn't even use what you provide. But if you don't provide it, it'll use system time, so I don't know why I would even bother providing my own. All right. Pointer to the buffer that receives the temporary file name, and this is just an output parameter. Give me just 1 second. Cool. Yeah, so I guess that's that. If the function succeeds, return value specifies the unique numeric value used in temporary file name, so whatever I didn't provide in here. If the unique parameter is non-zero, if the function fails, return value is 0. The following is a possible return value. Error, buffer overflow. The length of the string pointed. Yeah, max path minus 14 characters. That's a hard limit to hit. And what that's referring to is like on Windows, like the maximum number of characters you can have in a path is like, I think it's like 256 or something. That's that there's a cap, and so that's the maximum path for all the drive letters and folders it takes to get to the location, and then 14 for the file name itself. I think. Or it's the other way around. This is for including the file path, and then the last 14 characters can't be a folder name, I think. But yeah, there was something about how it would actually create the file. So I want to confirm that it doesn't do that for me. Because if it does do that for me, then I don't have to open up a file, I don't think. No, I just open up the file instead of making it with the C API. Path. So this is the whatever I specify in the parameters path. Those are the 3 letters. That's the unique number that if I don't provide any, that's the system time. And that's the .tmp. It's the name of the file, or the extension on the file. Unique is not 0. Okay. Yeah. So I guess what I'll have to do is go back to here. When I go to implement the function, which is up here. When I go to implement the function, I'll need a Win32 specific section to handle the creation of the temp file. I suppose probably there's a similar process on Mac, though I haven't done this on either Mac or Windows so far, so I'm unknowledgeable about that. Yeah, so maybe I'll make a helper function then for generating the temporary file path, and then that I can define in the platform specific file Win32, and then make that make an implementation of that in the Mac version when I go to port this over to Mac. So in order for me to do that, I do need to actually put it in the header, because that's going to be something that needs to be linked. The alternative would be to use ifdef to make it only Windows or Mac OS, but I feel like that might get a little bloated. So I like, for example, on this, I probably should have done this function just to 2 different versions of that file. Yeah, you know what? I am going to make 2 different versions of this file. Unless there's anything in here that I need. I do need temp dir path. So actually, yeah, I should keep it in here. But do I need to keep it in here? Because if I'm using the Windows API to generate a file path, I may as well just bring this over. Because I probably won't be, or sorry, not that over, the down here where I actually gather it. Because realistically, I won't be using the temp folder to directly write to anyway. It'll always be, with the exception of maybe some like data intensive things in the editor, the game runtime, if it's needing to offload data to the hard drive, then it's probably not engineered well in the first place. So yeah, I think I'm just going to go ahead and bite the bullet and make that function fully platform specific. So I can get rid of those extra lines, and then back where I started implementing the function, I'm going to just cut it and then go to the Win32 file and do it here instead. I'm going to do it below this helper function. But do I need, yeah. My style has changed a little bit since I started developing. Back when I programmed this, I wasn't in the habit of doing using enterprise file, and I am now. Just a little more elegant than having to type enterprise file everywhere. And it kind of evokes warm feelings like I'm working with Unity or something, because in Unity they use using directive in C# for most things. And yeah, now that I've got this here, I'll need to get the temp path and but you know what? If I'm not using the temp folder, I hate being so indecisive. You know, I changed my mind again. I'm gonna put this back in the main CPP file, and the reason why I'm deciding to do that is because I need the. Oh no, I do have access to the tempter path through the header. Oh, never mind. Flip-flopping again. The tempter path I'm not actually going to derive in this function using getTemp path, because that can be overridden with the datadir command line operation. And if it has been, then temp data path or tempter path will represent the temp location I chose instead. And that has the advantage of me being able to inspect it easier. If I go to go to my project folder again, a temp folder would appear in here containing the temp stuff. And then if I'm having file read-write problems, I can always go into the temp folder and confirm whether that's the point of failure or if it's somewhere else. Kind of a minor thing, but potentially a big one. So I got tempter path already because it's a private member string in here. Let's go to the API for the file path again. I'll do, so this will return the unique number. I need an LP string out for the file name. So we'll do LP string the temp file name out, and we'll call temp file name A. I need to pass it a LBC string, which is a wide string, I believe. Just triple check. Oh, is it actually not a? Is it a narrow string? I thought for sure it was a wide string. Type def car pointer. Oh, okay. Oh wait, no, car in this case is a macro, I think. That represents, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I'll try passing in the narrow width string first and see where that goes. But I'm pretty sure I need to make it a wide string, and I've got a helper macro up here that'll help me do that. So that'll be tempter path dot cstring, and then the prefix string, null terminated prefix string, which I don't need to put a prefix on it, so I'll just do that. an unsigned integer to be used for creating a file name. I'm going to set it to 0 because it says that if I set it to zero, then it will use the system time to create a unique number, and that number will be returned out the uint out. And then lastly, I need to pass the string, which it says out, but it doesn't actually say pointer here, so, or a reference here, so I'm gonna assume it's like oh right, it's already a pointer because it's a C style string. So that'll just be temp file name out. Is that it? I guess it is, and at this point I will have the temp file name to use. And just to make sure that that works correctly, I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick test. I'm going to have it print out the temp file name to see what it looks like. And in my testing state that I got set up, I've already got it printing a whole bunch of other stuff, but I'm going to skip that to say file I already forgot the function name. What was it called? Save text file. That's what it was called. And then I guess it doesn't matter what I pass here because I'm not doing any changes yet. And let's see what happens. Hopefully this will just work right off the bat and give me a valid name to use. This is taking forever. I use file for a lot of different locations, so if I make changes to it, then it tends to cause a lot of translation units to recompile. All right, what do we got? File. Oh, rookie mistake. I needed to return an error code. And then external symbol. That's just because the linker can't link to this file because it's not been compiled right. All right, here we go. Okay, got an exception already. The variable file is being used without being initialized. Come on, really? But it's just a pointer, so why does it have to be whatever? Or null pointer if we want to be politically correct. Try this again. And we got another one. Access rating violation at. Why is that being thrown? File, save file. It's happening when I go to print it, I think. Console log. And what's the message being logged? Yeah, so this is happening when I go to call eptrace to trace the file name out. It's still a null pointer. Do I have anything on the console that would indicate problems before? These warnings are actually okay. It's because I was serializing something that's no longer in the file. So this would be the next line to execute. This is the line we're on. Temp file name out is still a null pointer. So I guess this function is not getting me a path And when I go to, oh, it's not giving me a path, so now this is not actually a valid string. All right, so let's start by wrapping this. We'll do if, well, we'll do that because this was going to return 0 if, where do we go? Return value. Oh, the function fails, it returns 0. So I'll do that. And hopefully it won't crash this time, but I was kind of hoping that I would get a string, and it seems like I'm still not going to be able to. Built-in strlen. Thanks. You know, I have a feeling the problem is that I am not using wide strings for this. Let me that blank for a moment. See whether that makes a difference. And I'll use wcar to UTF-8 helper that I've got for making wide strings become narrow. Or no, I guess it's a LP stir is incompatible with the type. So I guess that is a narrow pointer type. So what could I be doing wrong? It's going to be something stupid. Oh, it's having issues writing to LP stir. I guess I just don't use it all that much. So LP stir is supposed to be pointer to the bottom. Oh. I am a fool. So yeah, so it doesn't return a pointer to a string. What it does is it actually populates the memory at this address. So yeah, I need to make a buffer. All right, that's what you get for not reading the instructions. So this actually has to be, an array of max path size. And then the argument of a string pointer is incompatible with, is it though? Yeah, I guess LP stir is actually a pointer, and I just need it to be car. So I'm gonna do car like that in all caps because I want to use the macro that's officially used with the API. And now we've got a buffer that should be compatible with LP stir. And hopefully this will be the last time I screw up. Temp file name out could be 0. This is not here. The specifications of technically this is more correct, I guess. Let's give that a shot. And hopefully it'll work this time because I don't want to spend too much time digging around on it. Okay, so we got the program running. Oh, but the this is supposed to be not equal to 0 because 0 means that it didn't work, and so I didn't trace out the path or the temp name. All right, and look at that. So we've got a temp file name now. Now on Windows, the paths all have backslashes, the Windows API. So that might be something I need to fix. That's all that's doing is it's just giving me a random valid name. It's not putting it in a location. So I should provide a path now. So if I go temp dir path, in enterprise and in most portable software, paths are all // whenever possible. So I exclusively use / in enterprise. I just convert them to backslashes whenever it is important. And the help functions I use are located here, but they are private member functions of the static class. So I can actually use backslashes to slashes to backslashes here. So what I'll do is I'll do temp dir path dot it takes an actual string. So I'll do slashes to backslashes, temp dir path. Then that result I'll do what? Their problem. Again, is that void is not oh, it actually edits the string. I don't remember why I did it like that. There was probably a good reason. I think probably my use case before was to edit a string that I've already saved to a location. So I'll need to add an extra step here. So I'll need to do an std string of this will be temp path, and then I'll call slashes to backslashes on it. Converted temp path. And of course I need to set this to temp dir path. Cool. So I'm making a copy of the path with the // then I'm going through and substituting the / with backslashes, and then I'm using that here. .c string. Okay, so now I'm telling the API where I'm going to be putting it. And according to the API, it should create and then close the file. So press F5, I should hopefully be seeing, no, I'm not seeing it. Did I create it still? Okay. I am neither seeing the folder nor am I seeing the file name come out. So that tells me that this came back with a 0. There must be something up with how I am doing this. This is a type def for regular car, which is what I get. What kind of C string this is? Do I need to put the A in? Yeah, I do. A lot of API functions, they will have an A or a W depending on whether you want ASCII or wide characters. So somehow adding the path led to a problem. Can we get last error on this guy? if the function fails, you can get extended error information with get last error. How I used it. I'm sure I've used get last error somewhere in my API, but I don't remember the last time I used it. The last error. That's actually not in. That's in the YAML CBP library. It's not mine. So I guess we'll just have to go by the API again. Here is calling threads, last error code. The last error is maintained on a per thread basis. Multiple threads, blah, 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 blah. Yep. Go to an example. So it returns a D word. And then I can use that to format. I am sure I've used format message somewhere before. I just don't remember where. And formatting the message is actually not all that great. It's not all that easy to do. Oh, I used it in hot constants. That's how I used it. Okay. This was just a helper function. But I'm going to copy it out and bring it into Enterprise real quick. There we go. I don't remember where TC out comes from. Oh, but I guess it's actually fine because the underlines went away. All right, cool. So we've got print last error. So I still need to get the error. What I'll do is I'll do print last error around get last error. Which is a little hacky, but oh, yeah, okay. Apparently TC out was a way for me to do a wrapper to choose whether we're using wide strings or regular strings, which is maybe not the most portable thing, but hey, if it works. All right. We've got a multiply defined symbol. Print last error. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I didn't make this static. And the one in hot constants is technically linked against this. Hot constants is a little helper library. I say a little bit. It got kind of large, where you can change certain constant values and just hit Control S, and then the program will just start using it without having to recompile. But I didn't know as much when I wrote it about static linking and things like that. So the helper functions are all in the global namespace, which is not great, but I don't feel like changing it right now. Hopefully this will link properly. Okay, and let's take a look. The directory name is invalid. So there is a problem with the path I am providing. If we inspect it, let's go back to here. So after I've called backslashes or slashes to backslashes on it, let's confirm what that string looks like. Confirm temp path. Interestingly, the slashes are still forward. They should be backslashes now. They're not. Why is that? I know that that function works because I use it all the time within the context of my other file system calls. So let's dive in, see what happens. So I've got an iterator going through the string, which I have to go one more step to actually see the parameter come in. So the string has got forward slashes. It's the temporary location where I have redirected the temp folder using the command line. And taking a look at the iterator, it goes through the whole thing from start to finish. If it dereferences oh, no way. Oh, I guess I don't actually use this one all the time. I must use this one all the time. Backslashes to slashes. But slashes to backslashes, if you take a look, the code is actually the same. So what I may have done is I may have copied and pasted the function and is like intended to flip the characters around, but it just never did. So yeah, that function was not doing what I thought it was going to do. So now that I've changed that, pressing F5 again to rebuild and retest. And now if we step over slashes to backslashes, we'll see that the converted path now has backslashes in it. So is that enough to fix the problem? Let's go back to here. It is still saying that the directory name is invalid. Okay. I know that the path, because I just inspected it, I know the path is actually correct. What I suspect may be happening is there's not actually a folder named temp in here, and the API probably isn't set to create the folder when it doesn't exist. So let's try it now that I've actually created the folder. Okay, that time it worked. Okay, great. So now it'll use whatever path I've got, and if I don't have the override done, and there's the file. So cool. It created the file and gave me a name for it too. That's awesome. If I go back to Sandbox and I take out the command line option here where I've redirected the data, and I just hit OK, then that should produce a path and a file in the actual temp folder. And if we take a look at the path now, it says, yeah, C users Michael app data local. And it's the file named bdd3.tmp. And if we go to that location now, bdd3.tmp, there it is. It was created and closed immediately. Yeah, now I know for sure that the temp folder is working both ways. I'm able to create a random name, and I'm able to use either the actual temp folder, which is what you'll do in production, or the override, so that I can inspect it while I am debugging. That is swell. That's the first part of this thing, and I didn't know how to do it before, and I learned how to do it on stream. Cool. I'm just going to quickly set my data editor back to there we go. I think that should be it. The command line uses backslashes. Though now that I'm saying that, I'm wondering if I need to, or if it handles both. I need to make it so that it's / compatible. No, I call backslashes to slashes on it, so it can handle forward or backslashes. So cool, that's that. And then press F5 again. The path is now back to the temp folder here. So I guess it would be a good idea to, I'll take a quick break, but when I get back, I think the next thing to do would be to make sure that the temp folder gets created correctly. And then we can move on to the next step of actually dumping the data to that file. All right, break time. Alrighty, I'm back. Where did we leave off? All right, we had just set up the system for which we would create and get a unique file name for temp files. Where's the... Oh, did I close it? I did. Let's go to the enterprise folder where I've got the project. Go to my data folder where I've redirected the temp folder. We can see that when we run the program right now, it generates the random file name, puts it in the temp folder I specify, which by default will be the correct temp folder in the user app data folder. But for debugging purposes is now in the data directory. So cool, that seems to be working great. We go back to enterprise. So coming back to that function, I don't actually really want to keep this print last error stuff around, but I may need it, so I'm just going to leave it. Let's go back to... Oh, this is the... Whoopsie. I'm in the hot constants file. Heading back to... Here's where we're actually working. I'm not sure that I want to keep this around, but I'll leave it there for the moment, because you never know if I need to get last error during this process. The path should always be correct from now on. So the only cases where it wouldn't be correct would be if we have overrode the path to the data directory by going in and changing the command line arguments to the program. So I guess, would it be smart then to have error handling saying that there's something wrong with the path? I think it would be. That would make sense. I guess I don't really have this this handling anywhere else. I was using this format in hot constants because I was not sure when it would be built in Unicode or not. So this was from the header, I believe. Or was it? I'm not sure. But it wasn't clear whether we would be using wide strings or not. Because Windows API stuff by default uses wide strings for everything. So whenever you're getting paths or providing paths to the API, in the general case, it'll be wide chars, not your standard 1 byte per character. I think it's by default is 2 bytes per character. So you have to convert back and forth all the time, and that's actually why I've got this helper function up here, because Windows API calls can provide me a wide string, and then I have to switch it back to UTF-8 for purposes in my engine. So I'll have to use, once I've gotten the path from here, put it in the wide path, I have to convert it to UTF-8 again, and then it's a whole thing. So I'll need to do the check, and I'll need to run this, and I guess I'm going to need to leave this as it is. I don't know whether this has got a portability problem. I guess I can just leave it, and then if there's a problem in the future, then we'll troubleshoot it then. That's kind of how it has to be sometimes. You have to move on and leave something as potentially broken in some circumstances, but then just not worry about it until those circumstances occur. So I will go ahead and do temp file out name. So I've got the converted temp path. I've done slashes and backslashes. I have plugged it into the get temp file name. Temp file name will create the file with the random file name based on the system clock. And then I have it here. And I need to use it in the file writing process. So I actually have to open up the file here and write to it the contents of int string. Let's make sure that that folder is created before we call get temp file name A. I always forget. I don't do file system stuff very often, so I always have to check. But I wanted to make sure that the file path got created, because what I don't want is somebody to specify their own path in here, and then just because they didn't go in and create the folder already, that the function would fail. I want it to actually go ahead and create not just the file, but the path leading up to it. So going back into the API the API call we just used. It doesn't seem like it has any interest in making sure the path exists. So maybe there's an alternative call in here that can do that. That's actually probably the terminology I need to use as a directory tree. So Boost has got a call, but I don't want to use it. I'm willing to bet, what year did this come out? 2015. I'm willing to bet that this got rolled into the file system, STD file system, which was rolled into Boost, or rolled over from Boost, I think in C++ 17, since, yeah. So I could use STD file system create directory. I'm not really using C++ style stuff to do file writing for the most part. I'm actually mostly sticking to C, just because it might be, so in some cases it's marginally faster. Like from what I've learned when I research, when I go to load the file into a string for the purposes of copying it, it's just faster to just use fopen and I think it's fread or fread directly into the buffer. Just make a buffer and load it up into it. But just for making sure that all the directories are created, I might just go ahead and include the file system header and do it that way. I'm looking at the Win32 API since I'm already doing Win32 exclusive right now. Creates a new directory. think this is what I want. I'm just realizing that looking at the bottom down here that both of these API calls have a warning to use the alias without the A at the end, which I thought that I was doing before. When I pressed the delete on the A, I suddenly got an error. Because we are actually in wide. Yeah, I hate this 132 stuff. This is actually why, if we go back to the macro that I had set up here, right at T out in T string and TC out in T string, if def on Unicode, this is why, is because sometimes you're compiling in Unicode and sometimes you're not. And I don't think I have control over that. I think that's like a platform specific thing. But if Unicode is defined, then I should not be using the ANSI version of that function. Okay, I guess before moving on, I'm going to need to fix this. So I've got a C string here that I need to make into a wide string. Yeah, LPC wster. So that needs to be wcar, and it goes away. And this has to be, I believe I've got to do L after the literal, or is it L before the literal? L before the literal makes it a wide character literal, so that allows me to just put no prefix. You know what? I'm gonna put a prefix. There's no practical reason why I would want one, but if I put EB in front, then that can stand for enterprise, and that might be helpful. And the converted path, I store the tempter path as a narrow string deliberately. There's a I don't think it's practical to internally within a program work with wide strings. I think it makes things way more complicated than it has to be. So I prefer to just work with this and then cast it to or convert it to a wide string when I need to. So this is a case where I need to move it up. Interestingly, I've only made the helper function to cast from wide to narrow. I've only got a narrowing helper function. And I guess I didn't write one the other direction, even within file CPP. It would be a little bit weird if I had like an inline in the header file that did it. Yeah, I don't think so. So I guess I'm gonna need to make a widening helper function now, which, yeah, I don't like that very much, but that's the name of the game. Fun times. I guess in cases where I would need to widen, it would be in the case where I need to actually produce, I need to actually store it somewhere. So I think for this function, what I'll do is I will write directly into the destination string. That way, it's not writing it into a temp and then copying it. It's kind of a tiny little C optimization that I like to use everywhere when I can. So what I'll do is I will just make the wide string, and then I will do I think it's UTF-8 to WCAR is what I'll call that, and I'll pass in the function, or pass in the temp direction path or directory path. So it'll take that, that'll be the input, and then the output will be converted temp path. And I'm passing it, passing the address in to make it a little bit more explicit that this is an output. And then I will come up here and make the static, I suppose it should be a void. It'll take the std string, Actually, it might as well take that by reference. I don't see why it wouldn't. And then the pointer to an std wcar or w string. Now start. And then coming back down to this one. Did I skip a step? I think I've forgotten something. Oh, yeah. Slashes to backslashes only works in UTF-8. So, all right. So what I'll need to do is I will I could do an alternative version of this where it takes in wide cars and or wide strings and does the conversion. I think it's probably the simplest way to do it. Even though I will practically only be using it on Windows, you never know where else you might need to do those conversions. So I will create same functions for W string and so on. And I don't think that this code has to change at all because it's literally just the same. It's just iterators going over that type. Actually, if I wanted to go even more C++y, I could make this templated and template a basic string, because all basic strings have the iterator and so on. But on the other hand, the WCAR-T, just to check myself. Yeah, wcart is implementation defined. But very likely to be 2 bytes, if I'm remembering correctly. These two might actually be the same, but we don't know for sure, because in some implementations wcart might be 8-bit. No, if for some weird reason, if I have to do yet another overload of this, then what I'll do is I'll just go in and make it templated and just make it be for any basic string type. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just implement backslashes to slashes. Back when I wrote this file system, I still thought that I wanted to do documentation in Doxygen for private functions, but I decided against it because the API is by definition not going to be in the private section. I'm just going to clear out those comments right now, and I will make the duplicates of these, and I will make them take wide strings. So now we've got an overload, we've got version takes wide strings, and I don't think I even have to do like a wide character literal. Do I need one? So I think they're literally the same values and they convert over. Wide character literal. I guess, yeah, to make sure that it's explicitly a wide char, I'm gonna want to put capital L in front of it, just like I do for the wait, is this the oh, you're doing it on the wrong one, wide string, just like I do on these strings, putting the capital L in front, make sure that this is explicitly a wcart type, which is actually the value that you get when you access one of the elements of the string. All right, cool. We've got helper function now, so we got some slashes to backslashes for converted temp path, which we still need to set equal to. We still need to convert to UTF-8. So part of the trouble with converting from one width to another is that there's not always a one-to-one correspondence. I'm thinking in the case of UTF-8, I might literally be able to get away with just casting it and using the same values. But boy, I'm not sure. Wait, technically, wide character is not a format, but to get it in the format that Microsoft wants it, it might be the case that I have to use a Windows API. Yeah, because what I did in the case of converting down, this is a Windows API call, wide char to multi-byte. I guess the opposite, multi-byte to wide char. That makes sense. want to see it in the example. Oh, and the example doesn't even include multi-byte to wide-char. It actually just includes wide-byte to multi-char. All right. Max character string to character string, not necessarily multi-byte character set. Frankly, I don't even care about security in this case. It's just a video game. And I'm not going to be doing like microtransactions or anything. Static void. I don't need to do a strlang on the string because the input is itself a std string, so we can just do string dot length. Size needed was used to figure out how wide the string should be. Okay, so I do need to call cool. Okay, so I think I've got it. I do need to do the size needed. Technically, when you're talking about the size of an array or size of a string, the size type size underscore t is what you should be using, but there's no way in hell that the string I'm going to be getting back is going to be more than 256 characters, so that's easily handleable by int, so I'm just going to leave it as int for readability purposes. Size needed equals, I believe that the return type for multi-byte is exactly the same. It's just the number of characters written to the buffer indicated. So I can do multi-byte to wide-char. Code page. I was using UTF-8 on the other, but now I'm converting back to the Windows format. I don't know whether it's ANSI. Sorry, I was confusing ANSI and ASCII for a second. The system default Windows ANSI code page. I think that's probably the one I need. I'm not completely clear on it. The word default's not in the identifiers. So I'll copy it. Paste. Oh, the default page is not even listed on the identifier page. So I guess this is not literally a page identifier. It just represents the default, so that's what I'm going to pick. And then DW flags, which I didn't put any when I was converting the other way, but let's see what the flags are for. Flags indicating the conversion type, application with MB precompose being the default. Always use decomposed characters, which base character or non-spacing characters have distinct point values. That doesn't matter. We're widening, so we don't have representation of those characters in the first place. Fail if an invalid input character is encountered. There's never going to be an invalid input character. Literally every character that a string can hold is okay in here, to my knowledge. With like the exception of null character, but it would just treat that as the end of the termination of the string anyway. Default, don't use with composite. Always use precomposed characters having some character value base. Literally none of this matters, so I think I'm going to plug in 0. If there's a problem, then I'll come back and revise what I've done. And then the next pointer to the character string to convert. In this case, that's going to be instr, but it's got to be .cstring because it's expecting a pointer, I believe. LPPCH. Now for this call, I'm setting it to be null because I'm not actually getting the string right now. I'm just getting the number of characters I need to reserve within the string, the output string, and then I will call this function again to use it. And that's probably it. Code page flags the input string. Right. I've missed a step. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time reading this. So we got code page flags, the multi-byte string, pointer to the character string to convert. Size and bytes of the string indicated by. Okay, that can be null as well. Or no, I have to actually provide the, yeah. So providing -1, because the string that returns from instring is going to be a null terminated string, because that's how C strings are. Why are you complaining though? What am I doing wrong? I think I'm having a hard time reading. All right. Code page, CP multi-byte. Pointer to the string to convert. Okay, then the very next one is the number of bytes of the string indicated. I'm setting it to -1 because I want it to be null terminated. Pointer to the buffer, and that needs to be null. And this needs to be 0. Okay. Gosh, I don't know why that took me so long. Has nothing to do with what's in my class. All right. And that should give me the number of bytes I need, or the number of characters I need. Required buffer size and characters. Cool. Now I can allocate the string stww string. Turn low. Size needed. Do I need? Yeah. I'm initializing it with zeros, I guess, all across. And then I can do multi-byte wide char. CP, ACP, I said, no flags, and then we will use string.cstring, null terminated, and now we actually do provide the address of the destination string. So in this case, it would be address of return val 0. That gives us the address of the C string. And it just writes directly into that buffer. And then I forgot already what the last one is. Size and characters of the buffer. Yeah, that's going to be size needed. Right? Wait, size needed times size of wide. Wait, wcar t. Because I don't actually know. Oh, I need another. I don't actually know. This might be compiled on some platform where, or some compiler where wcar is actually 8 bytes or 8 bits, for example. So that's actually implementation defined. So in order to be correct, we do need to say size needed times size of wcar t, because it's asking for the size in bytes. Oh, did I just misread it? Hang on a second. I'll divide to wide char. Size and characters of the buffer. Whoopsie! No, it's actually asking for the size in characters, so it's actually going to be the size in wcars. All right, cool. So that should be that. Return val. All right, and let's. Did I screw something up? Oh. We don't actually need to. I forgot that I'm doing this in a different format than the previous function. So we're not actually returning anything. We are just modifying the contents of outstring. So instead of allocating return string, I will do outstring dot, I think it's reserve. And then I can reserve a specific size. So I can do size needed. Cool. And then I do the ouster. Oh really? Is this going to be a problem? Oh, it's already a pointer. Wait, no, that's not right. I guess, I think I'm just being tired. What I was trying to do is I was trying to dereference the W string pointer to make it actually a W string, and then use the square braces operator to get the first character. But that's actually getting me wcar t instead of. Doesn't seem right, does it? It says wcar t is incompatible with type LPW str, and that an LPW string is the parameter type. So it should be interpreting this whole thing as LPW string. Oh, okay. Hang on a moment. I don't think it needs to. No? I'm overlooking something here. That's Okay, and that works fine for some reason. So C++ strings in the standard library have a member function called data, and that's supposed to just point you towards the raw character buffer. It should be identical to me dereferencing this and then calling the operator 0. Which, you know, not to say that one is better than the other, but oh wait, okay, that's interesting. Visual Studio is complaining about one but not the other. There must be something that I'm not thinking of right now that explains what the difference is. But for now, I'll just use outstring arrow operator to dereference and then use data, which is clear enough, but still. And hopefully that'll be all there is to it. Now we'll go back to the previously scheduled program. So we've got the temp file path. We're converting the, we need to set that equal to, right, actually, I'm remembering now, converted, so I needed to do UTF-8 to wcar. The string that we're converting is temp_dir path, and the wide string that we're outputting to is converted temp path. Okay, so at this point we've got nothing. This point we've got the converted temp directory path. We are now putting the slashes into backslashes, which is what Win32 needs. And now we've got a path that I can provide the API. And now the API call, the generic one that uses no A or W, seems to be working fine. So let me press F5 and see if I've broken anything. You can see all the extra work I had to do just to make this technically correct code with the Win32 API, and that's why I don't like working on operating system stuff. I just prefer to be within the shell of the engine, and everything I do just plugging into API calls that I've made. All right, what do I do? What did I do? Formatting of non-void pointers is disallowed. This is not my code though. What am I looking at? This is a static assert. Formatting of arbitrary pointers is disallowed if you want to point. Okay, so this comment mentions IO streams, which tells me this is a problem with the logging that I'm doing. The logging call I've got under the hood uses a library called spdlog, which depends on the contents being something that you can put to an outstream. And so, yeah, this doesn't take wildcards. So actually what I'm going to do, after all that work to convert to a wide string, I'm going to convert it back to a UTF-8. So, in that case, I'm actually, you know what? Yeah, in this case, we're actually just returning the string, so I can avoid having to allocate a whole variable and say, instead of temp file name out, wcar to UTF-8, and then just put an extra around that. And that's a tried and true conversion function. That's one that I've used very often. All right, let's see what we got. Okay, so that seems kind of correct, except here. It's got a / and a backslash. And actually, this should all be backslashes, shouldn't it? Converted file path. We convert that to the temp directory path to a wide string. Then I call it slashes to backslashes, converting the whole thing to. So this is not working correctly. Unless I did something else to the path that I forgot about. No, I didn't. Let's go back to the slashes to backslashes. Well, these do seem to be the same, so let's try that again. And I'll dive into what we're looking at. Converted tempter path has got /, and we dive in. / in the wide string still. It immediately skipped over the entire list. So stir.begin must be equal to stir.end, which doesn't. How does that make sense? Did I mess up something in the hell? That's so weird. It's skipping over the whole for loop. Like the iterator, the begin and the end are the same iterator. That doesn't make any sense. Especially because we know that the function works when it's just narrow characters. I'm going to take a break, and then I'm going to come back and take a look at this. Alrighty, let's get back to where we were. So the problem that I saw last time was that when we were converting the name, we've got the converted file path. I needed to convert it to a wide path. And that appears to be working correctly because I've plugged in the temp directory path, and as you can see here with a capital L on the other side of the literal that I'm looking at in the inspector, we've got a wide path, a wide string that's got the exact same path. But it's in forward, it's got forward slashes in it, and I need that to be backslashes for the Windows API. But when I step over it, over the slashes to backslashes, I still have forward slashes in it. So there's something wrong with my slash converter, and it's a simple as heck conversion function. So you think that would just work right out the bat, but it's right off the bat, but it's not. So I'm supposed to get an iterator that's equal to the equal to stringed up again, and that should be a wide string. This is a. Am I missing something? What is? I mean, I'm obviously missing something, but like this is as simple as dirt iterator loop. You got the iterator. Its type is auto to prevent having to type all the words out to make the iterator the right type. Until it's not equal to the end, league plus plus. But the fact that it skips right over it suggests that it is equal to string.end as soon as we begin, which can't possibly be right. Okay, I think I see what's going on here. Upon closer inspection, the string that we're bringing in has a size of 0, which means that string.begin and string.end are equivalent because it has as far as the string is concerned, it has 0 characters, even though we reserved them and we filled the buffer. We didn't ever tell the string shell around the buffer that it is actually bigger. So it still thinks it's got 0 characters. Whoopsie, that was my bad. Let's go back to the function. So what I did here was I reserved, which only make sure that there's enough memory within the outstring. In fact, I needed to resize. And this does a little more. It does out reallocate, so that way the wide string outstring has enough characters in it, but it also tells the string that it is bigger. The second parameter there in the resize, where it says the default value is 0, that's the character that it fills with. So when I make it bigger, all the characters between the current size and the new size, what do they get filled with? In this case, it doesn't matter. I'm just letting it fill with 0, the null termination character. And then when the buffer is done, when the buffer is filled, it will still be the right size. So that should be it. I hit play, the little play button on the top. It's not actually a play button. And now when we take a look at the path here, we got e backslash, and we've got the correct file path in the correct format. And we did it this time using the generic call to get temp file name instead of temp file name A, which is not correct. In this circumstance, we needed it to be wide. So that's that. We just need to make sure that the file path has been created. And that was one that I wanted to handle with create directory, I believe. So basically we specify the path name and security attributes, and then I make sure that the path is there. The macro is going to, we already know the macro is going to be getting us the W or the wide version of this function. So I'm looking at its page instead. Yeah, basically we just need to provide it a wide string and the security attributes. It's actually a structure. But we can pass a null to get the default security descriptor, which is what I want to do. Okay, let's do that. So what we need to do before, so we've got the file name. Before we call that, we need to create the folder if it's not already been created. So if it's already been created, then we get a failure with error already exists, which is actually okay. But on the other hand, I'm not sure that I really like the idea of having to call get last error when the directory does already exist. And in runtime, when on a distribution copy of a game made in Enterprise, this would be a redundant call because we're guaranteed, because by the virtue that we use get temp directory, we're guaranteed that the path is a good one. The only time that this check would need to be done would be if somebody goes in and puts in their own data directory for debugging purposes. I mean, I suppose we're not going to be saving files constantly, opening temp files constantly in a shipping game. Yeah, you know what? I'll just go ahead and what I'll do is I'll just call this every time and check the get last error code, and if it's not, error already exists, then I'll do the print last error helper function I've got here, and just take whatever hit that's going to be. Probably not a significant hit. I don't know. I'm not very experienced still in game engine programming yet. Cool. So what we need to do is we need to call create directory W or create directory, and then it'll automatically pick W out of the macro. And then I need the path name, which in this case is converted temp path .c string. And the security attributes can be null, is what it said. So this will create the directory or fail if it's already been created, or if there's oh, you know what? I misread the function. So this actually doesn't do what I thought it would do. It doesn't forcibly create every directory along the path. It just creates the final one. Oh my gosh, is there just a simple C function that can do this? I'll be so mad if there's just a single function that I can call in the standard library in C that just does this all without having to deal with Windows. Okay, what I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to go ahead and let it create the folder, create the last directory for me. Later on, I'll do some research to see whether there's a better function that will guarantee that it creates every directory along the way. For now, what this will do is I'll specify a data directory using the command line, and then I don't have to create the temp folder prior to running the program. What this should do, if I run it, it launches. If I come back to the data folder, it created the temp folder and then created the temp file. So I'm just going to go ahead and work with that for now. I'll put in a little to-do note. Cool. So now we've got a file path, and we've done it in the correct way, and that just working through the wide character stuff was enough to make this take hours. How long am I at? 2.5 hours with a couple of sizable breaks. Yeah. All right. So finally, we're going to need to be opening up the file for writing. In the case of Win32, I will be using fopen_s because that's there's a more secure version of fopen that Windows prefers that I use. I'm going to go ahead and move this into the Windows version of this file because this is basically two separate functions. It wasn't like that when I first started, but now that it's basically two functions, I might as well just split them off into the platform-specific files. And then this way, I will have an easy point of reference for the file. And then file macOS.mm. I will copy over just cool. And normally I don't like modifying macOS platform-specific code and that without doing it on the Mac and confirming that it works. But in this case, I do know already that it works because I've been using it on my MacBook. So I can just plop that in there and it'll be fine. There we go. And then I'm going to be referring to the way that I've used this API for those purposes. So for starters, I need the handle pointer, and then I need to use fopens and get the handle from it. And I'm not using native path. I'm using converted temp path. But actually, I need to bring this back into narrow in order to be able to use it with fopens. So that's got to be converted back into. I don't need to print the path anymore, so I'm just reducing that from the call up here. And I also don't need to store the path as path here. So I'm just going to directly cast it or directly convert it. I'm a little confused. An argument is compatible with wcar pointer, but it is, isn't it? This is a wide character. Is the problem the constness? I thought it would implicitly cast it to be a const. Yeah, I guess it's the constness, that's the problem. I went ahead and changed the prototype or the signature of the conversion function to be constant. It took that warning away. But this is actually returning a regular string, and I need it to be a C string to work with fopen. All right, there we go. We're reading it, and we're reading it in text mode. Okay. And what I did in this one is that once the file handle was open, I quickly wound to the end of the file, and the purpose for that was to get the size of it. I don't need that in this case, because I'm going the other direction, and I can get the size of the in-string just by going in-string.size. What I do need, though, is I need to do error checking. And I think if it's successful, then error equals 0. Otherwise, we need to figure out what the problem was with the file opening. I'm just going to go ahead and copy the file opening code here, or the failure to open code here. And I think it's literally the same. Oh, I need to change that to right. But yeah, file opening is the same. Just to double check, I'm going to go ahead and open up the fopens documentation. Doesn't it yeah, successful returns 0, returns a pointer, a new pointer to the stream is that string pointer. Yeah. Returns a non-zero error code and writes the null pointer. I guess I'll have to get that from the Windows docs. That's weird. I would have thought that the error codes would have been first thing to find on this page. But the page that I'm told to link to, this one, doesn't actually contain the codes to look out for. I think this will be another thing that I deal with later. I do know that the following error codes that I decided to handle the last time I researched this apply. So I'll just continue with those. But this needs to be save text file. So that way I'm not getting confused when I'm reading the documentation or reading the error message back. All right. So the file is open now. And I think that means I can use fwrite s. We confirm that. Okay, actually, it looks like they just use fwrite without the underscore s. The reason why fread underscore s exists is because there was a security concern regarding the original. And there's like, I'm not sure if it's like compiler errors, but there's definitely warnings in MSVC if you compile using just regular fread. But I think I can just use fwrite, it looks like, because I don't see the same warnings on the page here. So I use fwrite. I need a pointer to the buffer of data to write. That's going to be going back up to the parameters. It's going to be in string dot. I suppose I should say data. Each element is going to be size of char because we're working with UTF-8 characters, which I know I can literally just say 1 because that's 1 byte, but I'm going to go ahead and say size of char to be a little bit more readable. And we're going to do in string dot size for the number of characters. And we're going to be using fhandle for the handle. And that should be it, I believe. Pointer to the data to be written, the file handle. Good. That should be it. So we should have, at this point, created a temp file containing all of the data that we wanted to write. So for our purposes with testing, I'm going to go back to my test state, and I'm going to say underneath save text file, it still doesn't matter what path I provide. I haven't even gotten as far as copying over to the final location, but I'm going to say for the string that I'm going to write, I'm going to say this is a test, please ignore. And then this should be written to the temp file that gets generated in the enterprise data folder. So let's do that. Clear that real quick. Press F5. Hopefully nothing breaks. Okay, so it's run. I got a no such file or directory problem though. The temp folder in the temp file was created. So apparently it exists, but when I go to actually open up the file for writing, it says the file doesn't exist. So what did I mess up? Oh, what I messed up was that I never actually appended I'm not using the correct out. So temp file name out is what actually received the file name I should be using. And I just left it there. So let's review what we got. Convert file, convert temp path. We passed it to the get temp file path, or get temp file name. That generates the full path, puts it out in here in temp file name out. I can just straight up pass this into here. I don't actually need to do any conversion at all. Or do I? I do. I need to down convert it to, I need to do an arrowing conversion. So in this case, I'll do wcar to utf8. And that should return, that returns an std string. Oops. And then convert that to a C string, and that should work. Let's try this again. Okay, cool. Don't got an error this time. We have a new file, and I need a, it doesn't have a text extension on it, so I need to actually like open it up into another folder manually. It's unable to read. Okay. Is it the right file? Maybe it's this one. This one's empty. And this one it says unable to read. So resource busy or locked open. I never closed the file. Yeah. This just goes to happen. This is an area of programming where I don't do a lot of work, so I'm rusty on some of the details. So what happened was I opened the file and then I never closed it. And so when I tried to open it, it said, sorry, it's in use still. And it was blank when I tried to open it. So, or it was blank when I went to open it. So it's, yeah, it couldn't open it in another program. So I need to close it now that I've done the writing. And then F close, I believe, is sufficient. F handle. And be sure I don't need to do any other steps. Yeah, I just call F close, and that's literally it. All right, press F5. Hopefully this last time will be the charm. Still no errors. Let's open this up in VS Code. There we go. All right, cool. So now we've got a file being written successfully. Whatever string I pass into the function will be put into a temp file directly. And then I can move that file into the final destination afterward. Perfect. And this goes into the temp directory within my project because I redirected it with my command line. Okay, I think we're nearly done. Yeah, so the remaining thing is to move it. And I'm not actually sure off the top of my head the best way to do this. I'm assuming that Microsoft has their own call for this. Yeah, move file. Moves an existing file or directory, including its children. Now that's an interesting one. So it looks like just calling move file with the original location and the new location is kind of all it takes. But there is a caveat, which is that if you are moving it to a separate drive, then it will fail. That makes sense because the reason why a move operation is atomic is because it can happen like that. A copy takes time, and when you're moving a file from one location to another on your computer, it will remain at the same location on the hard drive physically. It will just the structure that tells Windows where it is in the tree of folders that is on your hard drive, it just like changes the pointer to point to another location on the drive. That is not possible if you're going from one drive to another. And that's something I haven't exactly considered. And I'm not sure if I care. For the moment, I'm currently redirecting the temp folder to be on my E drive, which is a RAID drive where I store my projects. So if I was to move from the temp folder I've got set up there, if I was to move from there to the final location on the E drive, that would work fine. But if I was a game player, if I was a gamer playing a game made on Enterprise, and the game wrote to the default temp directory on the C drive when it was preparing to write a save file, and then it tried to move it to the game save folder, that would work good unless their game save folder was located on another drive, which admittedly that's not likely because the default location in Windows is on the C drive along with the temp folder. But I think it's actually configurable. And if it is configurable, then that means it's theoretically possible for somebody to... Well, actually, I think no, to be more correct, it's possible to install on the non-operating drive in the first place. But you're not supposed to be saving to the program files folder. So even if they've installed that. So I'm thinking out loud here, and that might not be very coherent. I'm trying to figure out how you're supposed to change the default location. I'm like 90% sure you can do that. Right click on my documents and properties. Okay. So that's just for relocating documents. But if I was to go to I don't remember where the game saves folder is. Let me just see what the Windows API says. When I actually go to the API and ask where the saved games folder is supposed to be. Oh, I forgot I'm overriding it, so it never calls this code. Let's go back to you and cut the data directive, and we'll start it over again. Now it calls it. And I step over. So the saved dir path is located underneath. Oh, it's just C users, username, and then save games. Okay. Is it really? Doesn't seem right. Did I fuck up at some point? Yeah, C users, Michael save games. I guess that's where the default is. Oh, is that the case? Oh, that's great. Okay, literally the only developer who uses the specified folder that I've played so far is id, and they would. id software makes great, like really well made engines, and they actually have stored their saved data underneath the saved games folder in Windows, which is the official place Microsoft wants you to put them. Okay. So that location, I suppose I can do the thing I was trying to do before and pull up that folder. Go up a level. And then I go to properties, location. Yeah, so it's totally possible to redirect this to another location. If I go to move, it doesn't look like I'm restricted to this hard drive. So this could theoretically be on another drive entirely. And that's a problem because I can't always move there. So what I could do is I could try to initiate a move and see if that fails. I can then resort to copying. We'll move either a file or directory, including its children, to the same directory or across directories. We will fail on directory moves when the destination is on a different volume. If it is moved across volumes, does not move the security descriptor with the file. File will be sent to solid default. Wait, so this kind of suggests that it says that it will fail when the destination is on a different volume. But then it suggests on the very next line that you can move it safely to another volume. It says that it'll, if it is moved across volumes, like that will work. Oh, that's silly. So if I'm reading this correctly, it's saying that if I'm moving it to a new drive, that'll work. But the directory must already exist. If I'm moving a directory, the directory must be on the same drive. Oh, okay, so if I'm moving a file, that will be fine. Oh, okay, I get it. So there's different rules depending on whether it's a file or a directory, because you can use this to either move a directory or move a file. If you're moving a file, it will work fine. the caveat here that's mentioned is that it will not move fine when you're doing a directory move and the directory is on a different volume. Okay, so this actually will work without any problems. I can just call the move and then it'll work. Which, great, I can actually just, that's a pretty straightforward call, just do the existing file name and the new file name. And I already have the existing file name as a wide string. I just need to cast the destination, the one that we passed as a parameter, as a wide string, and then it'll work. So it's going to be move file. The existing file name is, what did I call it? I called it temp file name out. I'll probably go through and rename this to make this a little bit cleaner to read. And then I need the new file name, and that's this guy. It's just called path, but I need to convert it. So path, I would provide that to UTF-8 to do wide char. I'm not so sure I like having to pass this to I may come back to this later, and instead of doing this as a pointer to a string, I might just use that as a return value instead, because it's just not very readable. What am I doing? I'm doing std. Cool. Oh, I didn't put the, for this. All right, so hopefully that's all she wrote. It'll just go to the destination that I specify. Oh, but you know what? I need to do something else. I need to actually, when I go to convert the path, I am not converting the path directly, because the path that I'm going to be providing this function is going to be the virtual path. So I do need to call path to native path. And that's the function that I've made that will convert the drive letters or whatever to the correct path on the platform. So in this case, when I do c/, it will put it on the content directory. And I think that's all she wrote. So for testing purposes, let's take a look. Let me pull up the folder again, data. I'm going to get rid of the temp folder that's been creating there. I will say save text file. That's the contents of it. Now I need to specify a path. I'm going to specify I guess u for user, and then do moved file .txt. And we'll see how that goes. I think I used u for user as in the per user data folder, but I'm not 100% on that, so we'll see. All right, so we didn't get a crash. That's a good sign. But on the other hand, we didn't get a temp folder either. Did I fail to put the data dir back? I forgot to put the data dir back. Okay, so actually I'm gonna need to go hunting for that file. So I'm going to need to go hunting for that file, because when I went to do this test, I didn't redirect the data folder or the temp folder, so it actually would have written directly to the temp folder, the actual one, and then moved to my app data roaming. But I don't see anything in the app data roaming, so I presume that that didn't work correctly. Let's go to temp, and then the sort by date modified. Actually, no, let's sort by name, because I told it to use the EP prefix. So we'll see if that did it. It looks like that's the file. If I was to go into text editor and open it up, I see this is a test, please ignore. So that's the temp file that was created. The temp file, though, apparently didn't move correctly because I didn't find a folder. And I think that might be because the full path doesn't exist yet. So in this case, the temp folder got created, but the final file didn't go into a folder that was named user. Yeah, so it should have gone into data/user/whatever. I'm going to create the user folder directly, and we'll see whether that creates the file. And it did. Okay, so I've got the file now. It says movefile.txt. And if we go to temp, the original file still seems to be there. Is that right? Is that what I expected? I'll go back to this folder, delete them both, and create the user real quick. I think what I was expecting was that the file would move, not... Yeah, okay, so that was a leftover file from before. So what happened? Okay, I think that's actually working. Great. So what just happened when I pressed F5 is it went through the whole chain of events that we did. It went into the temp folder, which I have a temp folder for the purposes of testing. Sorry, save text file. So it went into the temp directory, got a random file name from the Windows API. It then wrote the string into that file. And then after the write was complete, it then moved the whole thing atomically to the user data folder, which is exactly what we want. Because if I had a file in the user data folder that I was trying to overwrite, I wouldn't want to accidentally wind up with half of the file in there or some other process mucking about with the file somehow. So this is just a much smoother, safer write. And it happens automatically. So when I go to call the save text file, I'm not thinking about the temp directory at all. I just provide it the location that I want to save the file to. I give it the data I want to write to it, and then it will safely construct it in the temp directory and atomically move it to the destination. So that's working great. There's a couple of caveats that I need to worry about still, which is the intermediate folders. The function that I used for creating the path to, or creating the directory containing the temp folder or temp file, that is only good for creating the topmost directory. I need to be able to create all of the missing paths as well, and I'm going to need to do the same for the intermediate folder here. And I mean, that might not actually be a problem in a shipping copy of the game, because the methods that I'm using to get the destinations should be good enough on their own. They should be getting me existing directories. But if somebody's debugging, then they will need to specify locations, and they may not. I think it'd be a bit much to say, oh, you must go in and manually create your temp directories before you can start debugging. So I need to be able to have those paths created for me, so that way that no matter what path I type in here, the only problems that I can encounter are security ones where Windows tells us that we shouldn't be writing there, and we defer to it when in those cases. And then the other one would be, I had a second one, but I forgot what it was. It had something to do with moving. Well, moving is supposed to work across hard drives. So I guess that's fine. Let me real quick test that works. The way that I had set up the data directory redirect was that all of the non-content directories would go to the same location, because there's a good number of them. I think what I'm going to do instead, for the sake of testing, I'm just going to cut off the redirection. I will look for the file in temp, and I will also look for the file in the correct user location, which if I go to set platform data editors, for me that's going to be underneath the user data path is going to be underneath roaming app data / developer name / app name. So in this case, the developer name, I think it's just my name. Or that's the wrong file. The developer name is Michael Martz and then Sandbox. So let me go into here, and I'm going to go ahead and make those folders. And then presumably the file will create in the actual temp folder, then move to the app data folder. It did. Cool. Sweet. So, okay, that goes to show that the move operation works correctly across hard drives as well. If I ever need to do that. Oh, wait, no, I'm not doing move across hard drives. Oh, maybe I should test this later when I'm more awake. Because when I canceled the redirection, both of these destinations, the default temp folder and the roaming app data folder, those are both located on the C drive, so it's actually not moving from one drive to another. That's okay. You know, the situations in which the move to the other drive would occur are just so fleetingly rare anyway, and technically it sounds like based on my read of the move file function that the move file should work across drives. So we're good here. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that temporary folder for the test and reinstate the redirection for this guy. All right, cool. I guess it's going to wrap it up for the stream. There's a couple more things that I need to do to clean up the presentation of the code for the write function. But that's kind of boring stuff, and I'm not going to do it right now. So cool. Take it easy. Have a great night.